575-678-1178. Tonight's forecast is calling for partly cloudy skies with a slight chance of rain in Alamogordo tonight. Expect a low of 49, Cloudcroft an overnight low of 39. Tomorrow we're looking at sunny skies in Alamogordo tomorrow, high of 72, low of 47 for Cloudcroft. Tomorrow, high of 60, overnight low of 41.
This is the Roundup on ESPN Alamogordo 103.7. Going from the Tularosa Basin and beyond, this is your local connection to the world of sports. From high school to college and to the pros, we cover the latest news and the biggest stories. Don't forget, this is your show. Change the topic anytime. Call us at 437-1230. The Roundup starts right now. ESPN Alamogordo 103.7. Hello and welcome into the show. Hope you guys are having a very good day. It's a Thursday. Relatively busy Thursday for high school sports action. We got 2 soccer games. We got 2 volleyball games. So we got a couple of things to make sure we get into today. And anything you'd like to talk about, 437-1230. The World Series has gone the Red Sox way here early. They've won a 2-run game and a 3-run game. It's not like they've been especially dominant. Dodgers probably haven't hit as well as they'd like to. Certainly haven't pitched as well as they'd like to. But they go back home. Could be a different story when it hits Dodger Stadium. So I don't think the series is over. It's usually they always say a series doesn't begin until the road team wins a game. Well, I will say if the road team wins a game on Friday, then the series is probably over. But stranger things, I guess, have happened. But certainly a must-win in this series for the Dodgers in Game 3. And, if you can get the game back to Boston, get the series back to Boston and put the pressure on them a little bit, you never know what might happen there. So we'll see. All right. What do we got for you today? Boys soccer in Deming playing at 3 o'clock this afternoon. They moved these games. If you have an older schedule, it might show the Tigers playing on Saturday. Same with the Lady Tigers. Those games moved to today. They've got ACT testing coming up on Saturday, so they wanted to give the kids a chance to focus on that and not have any games. I don't think any of the Alamogordo athletics are running or taking part today. Cross country runs tomorrow. They were actually going to be today in Carlsbad. They've changed their meet to the El Dorado meet up in Albuquerque. So football's tomorrow. And I'm not sure if the ACT testing is the same at every date at every school. That's one thing I'm always a little unsure on, or if the specific schools get a chance to set their own dates. That might be what it is. I obviously don't have the the insight on that. I've never been smart enough to ask the question either, so there's that too. But Alamo boys trying to wrap up their season at 16-4, which is, I think, just a game and a half, I think, different from last year. I think they were 17-2-1 last year in the regular season. So this would be 16-4, pretty darn good. 9-3 in a district which, I went into it thinking that maybe this district was not necessarily better than the district they played in last year. You had one team that carried over from last year's district in Deming, so it was kind of the same in that way. And I think it was tougher from the standpoint that there were more games against quality teams in the district for Alamo. Maybe. I don't know. It's hard for me to sit here and say that Santa Teresa and Chaparral wouldn't have been very competitive in the district this year, too, if they had been in there. So maybe close to the same, just more games. And today's a tough one. Deming they're just a difficult team to beat, and the Tigers have got to be focused and ready to go for this afternoon's match. They, in district, the only non-win they had last year was a tie at Deming. So, they've got to be be ready to go, especially after a hard-fought win on Tuesday and the elements, and the focus has got to be there. And they also haven't had to play games kind of back-to-back. They've got a day of rest in between, but this is a little bit different than what they had most of the district season. You'd usually had 3 or 4 days off in between games. So this is another little bit of a challenge for them, I think, going into tonight's game. Same goes for the girls. They're going to have to turn around and play a game tonight, one day after playing one last night. Congrats to the girls. Good win over Las Cruces, 2-1. They're going to finish third place in the district. And let's wait and see what happens with the brackets on Sunday. I don't want to take the Max Preps rankings as the end-all, be-all of who's getting in and who's being left out. I think there may be some district finishes in some spots that could move up the Lady Tigers in some places, but we'll see. I hope the Lady Tigers get in. The whole entire district, as I've said, hasn't gotten a whole lot of respect from the rankings, and I don't know how much of a difference there's going to be at the end of the day with the committee when they make their decision on the Max Preps rankings and what they decide. So, but that was for third place in district, and I think something the Lady Tigers should feel very positive about. Tonight is definitely a take care of business sort of game. I think they beat Deming 10-0 last night, or last time they played. That was going to be their last tough match, and the tough thing for the Lady Tigers, they just couldn't get past Mayfield or Centennial this year. If they had, picked up a win over Mayfield or maybe scored one over Centennial, that would have been a big difference for them. So, because those Cruces wins and probably the 2 Oñate wins are their 2 best victories of the season for the Lady Tigers, and that's going to be a thing that hurts them a little bit. They just don't have. In the tournament that they went to, losing that opening match, Centennial put them on the side of the bracket where they didn't get to see the best competition. And, the games against the good teams they played this year, playing Hobbs twice and Carlsbad, and it just wasn't they just didn't get them early in the season. I would have been curious to see the Lady Tigers play them here at the end of the year. Maybe that would have been a little bit different. I don't know. But there were some missed opportunities along the way that would have maybe helped the Lady Tigers with some victories throughout the year to maybe help their postseason resume. But we'll find out on Sunday. Like I said, I'm going to hold out hope for the Lady Tigers that maybe they got a chance to get in there as an 11 or a 12. But right now, with Mayfield sitting there at a number as the second best team in the district, and the Max Preps rankings have them at 14, I think, kind of a tough deal for them at the moment. So let's go to the phones. You're on the roundup.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to get the person on the desk there.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So listen, I think the Lady Tigers will go out and have a great senior night tonight. Go out there and support the ladies. Should have mentioned again that tonight is 5 o'clock first or kickoff this evening. Only 3 seniors in this group. That's something that I think is worth noting for the Lady Tigers. It's one of these years they're going to be senior heavy, I think. That sophomore and freshman class is just huge. But, tonight, Tori Bruinda, Cheyenne Drake, Raina Duran, the 3 seniors in this group, they'll be honored. And last regular season home game, and probably the last home game of the season, and we'll cross our fingers that maybe the Lady Tigers, that the Max Preps rankings have got some things that aren't necessarily right. And that, some finishes. We'll see how the district finishes go across the states if you look at the rankings. And I'll spend some time on that before tomorrow's show after the Alamo, their game tonight, and same with the boys. And there's still, one of the other problems is, especially on the boys' side, there's still some games to be played. I don't know if Gadsden played Centennial on Tuesday or if they played them last night. I've been waiting to see if those standings were going to update at all. And they're still showing that they've got 2 games left to play, does Gadsden. So I'm not totally sure. Maybe they're playing tonight. Their next scheduled game, I think, is Saturday against Centennial. So the Centennial game was the Saturday scheduled game. They were supposed to play Oñate on Tuesday, so I don't know if maybe they're going to play it tonight or if that game has already been made up. I'm genuinely not sure what the plan is there for that game, but they have to play it. You know, the same reason why the Lady Tigers were back over in Cruces on Tuesday on Wednesday was you got to get every district game in if you want to be considered for the state tournament. So we'll see what and maybe they just haven't uploaded the final to Max Preps. That could be, but Mayfield is still listed as needing to play 2 games as well. So may not have a whole lot of info on that for you guys until the weekend, because I'm sure they'll have it already and up there by the weekend. But other than that, a bit unsure on some of those things. Couple of cool events for Tularosa and Cloudcroft's volleyball tonight. Tularosa has their pink game tonight. Lady Tigers had their pink out game on Tuesday. This is Tularosa's version of that tonight. 6:30 for varsity. JV at 5 o'clock as they face off against Dexter. And I'm sure they'll have things going on there in support of breast cancer awareness and chances to donate and send money to, I'm sure, a charity of their choice. I'm not sure which one they've got out there for tonight, but go and support the Lady Cats and see what they've got going on this evening. And up in Cloudcroft, it's their pink and teal game. Pink, obviously, for breast cancer awareness. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, so everybody's got a pink game. Alamogordo Boys and Girls Soccer's had that. I think Tiger Football has theirs on Friday, and I'm sure some of the other football programs will have theirs. And teal is the color for ovarian cancer awareness. And Ella Puckett, and I'll encourage you to go to the NMAA's website. They presented her with an award last month and did a feature on her, which I believe is also available on YouTube if you want to check that out. And one of the ladies on the Cloudcroft volleyball team is battling cancer at the moment. So an even more special evening to help create awareness, and that has certainly touched Coach Watson's group this year up in Cloudcroft. So if you get a chance to go to either of those games and support what those programs have going on tonight, please do that. And again, 5 o'clock for game starting up in Cloudcroft. I think it's the same over in Tularosa. The first game started at 5, varsities at 6:30, but those games going on this evening across the area. I think that's what we got for local sports today. And like I said, if you get a chance to swing by either of those volleyball matches, I'm sure the teams will appreciate it and appreciate the support that you'll show, not just for them playing the match tonight, but for what they've got going on this evening. It's good stuff. Like I said, I was really impressed with what Alamo had going on Tuesday night, and that's been, I think, a big positive for Alamo volleyball over the last number of years. They've really put a lot of effort into the what used to be the Dig Pink night. Now it's the Pink Out game. I don't know if there's a difference for the reason of using that term. It used to be, for the guys, used to be tough enough to wear pink, and now they've stopped using that one. So that's probably a copyrighted deal. So that seems like every program has something like that, and I think it's great. I know there's a lot of, when you get to the big leagues, there's definitely a corporate nature to it, but they're still finding a way to donate money. I think the NFL has now turned to, it's not just breast cancer awareness during this month. They've got, it's like a rainbow deal that they've got going on where they're all the different colors of awareness for breast cancer, or for it's difficult for me to keep track of all of them. I know orange is, I believe, pediatric cancer. Obviously had to look up what teal was for what's going on up in Cloudcroft, and there's a number of other colors, obviously, that represent various kinds of cancer. It can sometimes be a little confusing of which one's which, but they're all positives. They're all good things that people are trying to either create awareness or raise money, and be a little overwhelming at some points. But I think at the end of the day, it's a good thing. And I guess that's it for local stuff. We'll talk more about Tiger football and the Wildcats tomorrow are at home. The Bears are at home tomorrow. They've got their homecoming game tomorrow. Mescalero football's wrapped up their regular season. Mescalero volleyball plays again on Saturday, which I think is that Lordsburg or Capitan? I can't remember who they have on Saturday. But that's coming up this weekend. Alamo volleyball is off until next Tuesday. So if we haven't mentioned them, that's the reason why. They'll finish up their regular season next week. They've also got the district tournament coming up. Same goes for Cloudcroft and Thule and Mescalero, with next week being the end of the regular season, and then the district tournament week as well. And, yeah, not much else. But isn't that enough? Alamogordo cross country running tomorrow. Cowcroft cross country is running in Ruidoso this week. So we got a few things we'll make sure we keep you up to speed on up on the ESPN Alamogordo Facebook page. We mentioned what's going on with tonight's games here in the area. Again, with the pink game in Thule and the pink and teal game in Cloudcroft and the senior night game for Alamogordo girls soccer. And do you want to mention again, that game starts at 5 o'clock tonight. Varsity's been starting at 7 o'clock all season, or at least all district season. There's no JV team for Deming, so they're just going to go ahead and play the varsity game at 5. Makes sense. So make sure you get out there in time. If you show up at 7, you will have missed everything. Let folks know. I'm sure, the folks that have been supporting Lady Tiger Soccer, they're already going to know, but if you had some plans to head out, you haven't been to a soccer game all year, this may be your last opportunity to see a soccer game at the Soccerplex, at least high school. You might want to make that happen. Kind of a shame they didn't get the I know they were really trying to get the field in shape, to the bottom field, the main field at the Soccerplex in shape, but I think when the cold weather started rolling along and things weren't growing like they were a little bit earlier in the season, it'll give them a chance to hopefully work on it correctly for an entire growing season. So starting in, March or April next year, and have the fields in really good shape come next August. That would be, I know, a huge bonus for the soccer team. So, the top field I feel like has worked pretty good this year. I know that there's definitely some issues with it. There's some spots that don't have grass, but I think at the end of the day that, APS Athletics did the best they could, and they did a pretty good job. I can't remember coaches, opposing coaches coming in and being, really complaining about the field conditions if they weren't especially vocal, and that would have been weird to me because there were a lot of coaches that were really vocal about a lot of other things throughout the season. So kind of like, if they were going to be upset about it, they would have let folks know, I would think, but it could be wrong. I don't know. But we still may have one more game. We'll see. The way the bracket shakes out for Alamogordo boys soccer, they still may get a home game. I think they still need a little bit of help from Gadsden here at the end of the season, and I don't know if we're going to get that. I don't know if Gadsden's playing they must be playing 2 games in 3 days is all I can figure out. Or they played on Tuesday and they just haven't loaded up the final score. I'm not sure. And by the way, their football game, which was going to be on Friday and they moved to Saturday, was not because of soccer. They moved it to Saturday because of a lack of officials, apparently. So that's why Gadsden football is playing on Saturday night, is that they couldn't find officials for the game on Friday. Which is not an unusual thing. We haven't seen it a ton in the state this year, but it's been happening more than I can remember, in that officials haven't been available, or are busy with another game, or a lot of different bits and pieces to that. Did see that? I don't think I've ever seen the NFL fire an official for being incompetent. There was a bad false start miss in the Chargers-Browns game, and one of the line judges, it was bad. But there's a lot of times I watch games and I think they miss false starts more than people lead on. But this one was pretty obvious, and it must have been a cumulative thing where they had seen over time that we don't need this person anymore. But kind of interesting. I'd never seen a story, and this is, sources say all those kind of things, but if the official's not on the field anymore, maybe there was another reason why. Because again, officials are going to make mistakes, but maybe it had built up and they had pointed out enough times where it's like, we need to find somebody else. If we're going to claim to be the best football league anywhere, I mean, we're pretty much the only one, but that we need to have the best officials. It's a fair point. That's, I don't know, is that going to ease fans a little bit, knowing that maybe officials can actually get fired for being bad? As I know that's a tough thing for fans to reconcile a lot of the times when they feel like these guys really aren't doing a good job and there's really no repercussions for doing a poor job. I think there is, and I think there always has been, that if it, regularly they do a bad job in interpreting the rules, that the NFL moves on from them. I think there's a shortage of officials at the high school level and the youth level, but in terms of getting guys to do, major college football games or the NFL, I don't think that they have too much of a problem finding those guys. But they're also going through a big upheaval. I think they've lost, 3 or 4, white hats in the last few years, really experienced ones, and have had to replace those, and it's certainly changed the face of the NFL just a little bit. But I saw that headline. I went, really? I don't think I've seen that before. That's different. All right, so again, with local sports tonight, Alamogordo girls soccer, 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock. No JV, just varsity at 5. The Alamogordo boys soccer team on the road. They play at 3 o'clock at Deming today. A reminder, you can go to the Alamogordo Tiger Facebook page, Alamogordo Tiger Soccer Facebook page, and Andres is usually pretty good about posting updates on there. And the Tularosa Lady Cat volleyball team has their pink night tonight, so go by and support them there. 6:30 for varsity, and Cloudcroft has their pink and teal night, and that'll be 5 o'clock start time up there. So best luck to everybody. Hope it's a good night, and we'll take a quick break and come back. More of the Roundup on ESPN Alamogordo 103.7 after this.
Stop by White Sands Motorsports right here in Alamogordo for all your power sport needs. White Sands Motorsports carries Honda, Yamaha, and Roxor. New to the store, Can-Am and Textron side-by-side vehicles. As always, they handle parts and services for all makes and models. For the best power sport deals on 2 or 4 wheels, White Sands Motorsports has got you covered. Open Tuesday through Friday, 9:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. and Saturdays, 9:30 to 5. 21070 Highway 70 or visit motorsportsofnewmexico.com.
Every student wants their high school sports apparel, and there's only one place to get it, the Winner's Circle. They carry all the local school letter jackets, whether you're a Tiger, Wildcat, or Bear. While you're there, get your jacket personalized with embroidery, stitching, and have your letters and patches sewn on too. They also carry trophies, plaques, and awards, and service with a smile. It's all at the Winner's Circle, 1201 10th Street in Alamogordo.
If you find yourself frustrated because your internet is slow, then you need to call Tularosa Basin Telephone Company. They have the speed, the reliability, and the customer service to turn your frustration into smiles. Now, doesn't that sound like a better plan? Call Tularosa Basin Telephone Company at 585-2700 and get connected today.
Sometimes you just need a loan. Your daughter Debbie is getting married. Your son Toby needs a new tuba. Let's face it, families cost money. Things come up that you had no way of predicting. We make personal loans for occasions like this to people who have good credit. So next time you find yourself connected to the unexpected, stop in and see us about a personal loan, subject to credit approval.
First National Bank, member FDIC. When you grow, we grow.
This is Brandon with Desert Sun. I'm not sure if you all know this, but Desert Sun Auto Group consists of 5 dealerships across the great state of New Mexico. This means we have 5 new car departments with over 500 vehicles to choose from and over 200 quality pre-owned vehicles. Majority of these vehicles, when bought from us, are backed with Desert Sun's lifetime powertrain protection. Stop by either Desert Sun Motors or Desert Sun Toyota today and let us help you find your new ride. See our full inventory at DesertSunMotors.com.
You're listening to ESPN Alamogordo 103.7. Welcome back into the program. If you want to call in, 437-1230. I kind of flipped in and out of the World Series game last night, but how about David Price? Another solid outing in the postseason. He was a guy that's been plenty criticized for his bad postseason efforts, and rightfully so. He had not played well in the postseason. I think, here's maybe why he gets criticized more, and maybe Clayton Kershaw doesn't get as much, as I think Kershaw's regular season outbalances it a little bit more, where Price has not been the dominant pitcher in the regular season that Kershaw has. It's probably not fair, but it's just kind of how it is. But otherwise, coming up with big hit, the bullpen for the Red Sox has been very good in the first two games. Craig Kimbrell, who had been a little shaky, be the way to describe it, in the Boston-Houston series, he's been very good. You figure the bullpen didn't allow a hit, struck out 3 over the final, didn't allow a base runner over the final 3 innings. So for that Dodgers lineup to be held to 3 hits is pretty darn impressive. J.D. Martinez came up, and I saw a headline today where they talked about, I think the headline was, they paid J.D. Martinez and David Price combined was like $317 million. Is that how much their total contracts are worth between the two of them for games like last night? And it's true. That's when it's frustrating, when you know that you've paid somebody a ridiculous amount of money and they don't show up in the big moments, when you're not out there to see those guys get big numbers in the regular seasons when the postseason rolls around. And so far it's worked out pretty well for the Red Sox. Long series, still some time to go. It's not over at all, I feel like, but Mookie Betts was 3 for 4 last night. He had another good evening. I mentioned Martinez had the 2 RBI single, which broke the game open. I think one run came in on a walk in that fifth inning, the 3-run inning. Ian Kinsler had an RBI last night. There's a guy that's kind of towards the end of his career, but is doing some solid things against Boston. On the other side, the lineup just isn't hitting especially well for the Dodgers as of yet. Turner wasn't great last night. He was very good in Game 1, though. David Freese has been he's hitting the best out of anybody in the postseason so far for the Dodgers, but he's kind of they're going to use him in particular spots throughout the postseason. So, they just need, a few of their guys to step up. Who's actually been surprisingly good this entire postseason is Yasiel Puig. He's come up with huge hits at big times all postseason long, especially in that Brewers series. He had the only RBI, he had one of the RBIs last night. Who had the other one? Matt Kemp had the other one on a sac fly. So, they still have arguably their best pitcher to go in Game 3, and Rich Hill's been pretty good. We'll see if he pitches Game 4. I don't know. I'd throw him. He's been solid pretty much the entire postseason. Did well against the Braves in their closeout game, and I think he picked up a win in the Brewers series too, didn't he? I'll have to go back and look at that. I may be wrong. So I think it'll be fine. I certainly. I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to get game. I hate making that prediction deal, but I'm not ready to count out the Dodgers yet. I think that you just had 2 good games where really one inning has made the difference, and that's baseball. But it hasn't been a special domination, and there's a lot of people that have been very critical of Dave Roberts, and probably fair in some spots. And so maybe he has a chance to make some better decisions in Game 3 and 4. Who knows? So I think it's certainly possible. Again, we're talking one big inning in Game 1, the 3-run homer from Nunez, and last night's 5th inning where they scored 3. That's the difference. So right there on the razor's edge of being, maybe a 1-1 series, maybe even a 2-0 series, the Dodgers. I don't know. The doom and gloom for the Dodgers seems to be pretty heavy, not just among their fans, but I think among the media a little bit as well. I guess I'm a bit more optimistic. And I'll say it again, I have no dog in the fight. I don't want to say I don't care who wins, but it doesn't bother me one way or the other. I have no issues with the Dodgers. I have no issues with the Red Sox. I'm not especially rooting for either team because they're both big money franchises. There's not an underdog. There is no underdog story in this. You could maybe make the argument, hey, the Dodgers haven't won a World Series in a while. That's probably fine. All right, headlines today. This has been a story that's been carrying on all season. A 2-month investigation into allegations of abuse within Maryland's football program found there was not a, quote, toxic culture under Coach DJ Durkin, but troubling incidents occurred under Durkin's leadership, according to a copy of the report submitted to the University System of Maryland Board of Regents and obtained by ESPN on Thursday. The Maryland football team did not have a toxic culture, but it did have a culture where problems festered because too many players feared speaking out. So I guess here's my question. What is the official term of what exactly is a toxic culture? I mean, genuinely, what makes it truly toxic? Where was the cutoff for these investigators? Just curious. And the other part, if players feared speaking out, that's a problem. That's kind of toxic to me. The commission report said there were many occasions when former strength and conditioning coach Rick Court, who resigned in August, engaged in abusive conduct during his tenure in Maryland. This included hurling homophobic slurs, which Court denied, but others confirmed to the committee. Mr. Court would attempt to humiliate players in front of their teammates by throwing food, weights, and on one occasion a trash can full of vomit. Lovely. All behavior unacceptable by any reasonable standard. But the commission found there was a lack of clarity in Mr. Court's reporting lines. That's not an unusual thing. Was it a Real Sports piece that I saw? It might have been something else, where they talked about how much autonomy the strength coaches and how strength coaches have kind of become rock stars on college football programs across the country, and that they don't necessarily have people that they have to report to in a lot of ways, and that there is some danger to that, and of course led to one of the Maryland football players dying during summer workouts. Now, there's a separate investigation that's going on into the death of Jordan McNair, the 19-year-old offensive lineman, when he suffered heat stroke in May and then died on June 13th. And Maryland issued the following statement: the university is committed to a fair and accountable process and will continue to the commitment as we work to ensure the safety and well-being of our student athletes. Court, who was the strength and conditioning coach, had no performance reviews during his tenure and was effectively accountable to no one, according to the report. The commission attributed this to a rift between former athletics director Kevin Anderson and then deputy Damon Evans, who eventually became interim athletic director before being elevated to the permanent role in July. Durkin told the commission he wasn't responsible for supervising Court. He did, however, work with Court every day, and Court's contract lists Durkin as the person to whom he reports. Neat. It's an interesting entire piece here, but you always get into those occasions where it wasn't my fault. That wasn't my fault. And the fact that nobody, it sounds like nobody really wants to step up and take any type of accountability for what happened to that player. Now, that could be certainly a legal thing, and I'm not sure if I've seen so much of what Durkin said after the death of the player in earlier this year. So a little confused. It says August 14th, ESPN reported McNair was admitted to a local hospital with a temperature of 106 degrees. That can't be right if it was May 29th that it happened. Unless it was... Yeah, there's something not right in this article that they didn't... At least the date doesn't seem to be right. And I think Durkin has still not been officially fired. He's still on suspension with all of this. Here's the deal to me. Football, at no point, at any time, is it acceptable for one of the student athletes to die. I get, we hear about these, we really romanticize, we're going to go and work out in 100-degree heat and sweat it up and really go out there and do something crazy and it's going to make us stronger for it. And it's just stupid to me. And I'm sure there's a lot of tough guys out there that'll say, I don't know. I don't really know what that, or, back in the day, blah, 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 blah. That's one of my favorites. We used to do this back in the 70s or 80s, and it's not that day anymore. It's 2018. And there are plenty of healthy, smart ways to get stronger and to get better and to do conditioning. I understand that there's going to be some athletes are going to be lazy in terms of their ability to condition. And you got to try to find ways to motivate. Just, I mean, you hear stories about a guy taking a trash can full of vomit and throwing it. I mean, and I bet you that guy will end up getting a job somewhere. I think in the piece that I saw, they were talking about they had a player die at the University of California within the last few years, and that strength and conditioning coach is still there. And maybe, listen, I think in some cases it's probably not these guys' fault. Something happens in somebody's body, and you believe that you can push somebody to a certain point, and sometimes stuff happens. It does. You find out that there is a genetic anomaly in some of these athletes where they've gotten a large heart or many, many different things. I think the one out in Cal is that young man had a sickle crisis, and nobody was really aware of it. Nobody was aware of his condition. And not only the strength and conditioning coach, but the athletic trainer did not handle that situation well. So again, I understand getting conditioned correctly and the need to be able to, they talk about it as an arms race in college football these days, and having, a good strength and conditioning coach and having your guys as ready to go for games throughout the season. And I get it. I do think it's important in order to be successful in college football that your guys are in good shape. Makes complete sense. But it's got to be within reason. It is, at the end of the day, it is just a game. For some of these guys, it is a way of life and a living. You talk about some of the big-time college football athletes. They're going to have a chance to go on and make millions of dollars in the NFL. Yes. But there's got to be a limit somewhere along the line. And maybe it's one of those cases that because I've never been a part of that culture, inside of that culture, I don't understand. And it's true. I don't understand. So, I've never been in a spot where I've been an athlete and I've been I've tried to push myself as hard as I absolutely can. As an adult and as a kid, I've certainly worked out and done things that a regular person does, but not to the point where the strenuous activities that guys that are top-notch athletes have to do, and gals for that matter, men and women that have to do that. So I maybe don't have a good grasp on all of that. I don't know. But, you read stories like that, and I would hope most people would read that and go, that's too far. But I think there's probably some people that read it and go, if they played football or they played another sport in the past, they say, you know, man, I've been out in 100-degree heat and doing crazy things to try and get into better shape to be an athlete. And so it may come off as kind of a much ado about nothing in some cases, in some people's minds. And that's interesting to me. And I think that probably is true in some of those cases. So at the end of the day, it's just a tragic story, and you're trying to find answers to what exactly happened. And I think more than anything else, it just sounds like there was a lack of accountability and a lack of supervision, and there was really nobody to say, hey, this is certainly nobody for the players to go to and say, hey, this isn't right. And that's an issue. You know, we talk plenty about, you know, players getting compensated and stuff, but, you know, when you start talking about an 18, 19, 20-year-old young man, you know, you're still in a position where you're probably you want to be in the good graces of the coach. You want to play. If you're at a big-time college football program, you don't want to be the person that's, you know, stepping out and sounding like they're complaining. And you're often afraid to say, there's something not right here. Even if it isn't directly happening to you. If it's somebody else on the team and you're sitting there going, man, that's not right. But you're in a situation where you feel like there's no one for you to really go to and say that. That's an issue. And I'm sure that happens at colleges and probably high schools all across the country, where you don't feel like there's someone you can talk to without maybe fear of repercussion or being not taken seriously, and that's tough. You know, people are more reasonable and would just at least listen, you know, and give a reason why either you feel like their complaint is valid or not valid and not just blow it off. So, and I'm sure if you talk to the folks inside the Maryland football program, or at least the coach and the strength coach, they'd probably have a different viewpoint on all of this, right? All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. If you want to call in, 437-1230, more of the roundup for you after this.
There are no roadblocks scheduled today on either Highway 70 or 54 South. For the latest roadblock information, call 575-678-1178. Tonight's forecast is calling for partly cloudy skies with a slight chance of rain in Alamogordo tonight. Expect a low of 49. Cloudcroft, an overnight low of 39. Tomorrow we're looking at sunny skies in Alamogordo tomorrow, high of 72, low of 47. For Cloudcroft tomorrow, high of 60, overnight low of 41.
What makes Vision Ford Lincoln Hyundai unique? At Vision Ford, we're all about you, your vision, your style, your needs, and your story. Vision is fully stocked with dozens of the hottest 2018 models, including the Ford F-Series, America's #1 selling truck for 40 years. With financing options that fit every budget and a sales team dedicated to you, Vision Ford Lincoln Hyundai continues the Yes We Can tradition. All we need is you. Visit us today at 1500 South White Sands Boulevard or 24/7 online at visionfordlincoln.com.
People you know, community people, people you know, community people.
If you're looking for a new car or truck, we've got your loan and a local dealer has your vehicle. It's the people you know combination. See us today. Federally insured by NCUA, OFCU, 3 branches in Otero County, 434-8500.
Community people, you know.
Everybody else wakes up so rested and cheery, while you wake up with back pain and ready to get back into bed again. They make you sick. It takes 30 minutes just to get your back feeling normal. You work hard to make life great. Why is sleep such an issue? It shouldn't be. Sleepwell can help you find your sleep again. From finding a mattress that supports your back to relieving strain by using a power base, Sleepwell will partner with you. Come see us today. Find the rest you need and lose the back pain. When you sleep well, you live well.
Looking for a good pre-owned vehicle? You know the one everyone wants? Late model, low mileage, good condition? Then you need to look at Richardson Motors. Robbie and his staff will get you in a vehicle you want, whether it's a car, truck, SUV, or van. At Richardson Motors, it's about taking care of the customer right the first time. So for the best service, the best vehicles, it's got to be the best dealership. Richardson Motors. Richardson Motors, 318 South White Sands, next to McDonald's.
You're listening to ESPN Alamogordo 103.7. Got about 15 minutes left in the program today. Want to mention game times again for our area games tonight. This is a little bit different. Varsity playing at 5 o'clock over at Reiner Steinhoff Soccerplex. Alamogordo girls soccer. There's no JV team for Deming. So just going to go ahead and play varsity at 5 p.m. tonight. Heads up on that. Senior night game. 3 seniors for the Lady Tigers this season. Cheyenne Drake, Tori Barunda, and Raina Duran. So they'll be honoring them this evening. We've got the pink game going on in Tularosa tonight for Thule Volleyball. They face Dexter in a district matchup, and Cloudcroft Volleyball has their pink and teal game for breast cancer awareness and for ovarian cancer awareness in honor of Ella Puckett, one of their players that's battling cancer this season. So both of those going on tonight. Go and support the Lady Cats and the Lady Bears if you get a chance to go to either one of those games. I'm sure they'll be doing some homecoming stuff as well up in Cloudcroft. It's their homecoming week. Their homecoming football game is tomorrow night. And Alamogordo boys soccer going to kick off here in about 15 minutes out in Deming for the varsity side as they face off against the Deming Wildcats. Final game of the regular season. Try to keep the pressure on Gadsden and Mayfield a little bit and then see what happens in the final couple of games heading into the bracket release coming up on Sunday, which I think I've probably talked to you guys nonstop about over the last couple of days. So we'll try to save you on that one a little bit because I feel like I've been talking your ear off a little bit about that. The Twins have hired Rocco Baldelli as their manager. He becomes the first manager born in the 1980s to get a job. He's 37 years old. Replaced Paul Molitor, who went 305 and 343. They made the playoffs last year, but he's the youngest manager in the major leagues. He spent the last 4 years on the staff of Rays manager Kevin Cash. The first 3 is the first base coach. His role in 2018 was a newly created position called Major League Field Coordinator, helping Cash and bench coach Charlie Montoyo with in-game strategy, working with the outfielders, and focusing on the continued development of the team's young players. Apparently those were magic words in Baldelli's bio for Twins Chief Baseball Officer Derek Falvey and General Manager Thad Levine. They were effusive. That's a big word. Who wrote this article? Associated Press, okay. I'm like, oh, okay, effusive. With their praise for Molitor, for his acumen, character, and flexibility, but the closest Falvey and Levine came to articulating the specific reason for Molitor's dismissal when they announced it's a little more than 3 weeks ago their desire for deeper connections with millennial players. And maybe that's what it is, just a connection to the younger guys, a younger player. We'll see. At some point there's got to be that turnover where you've got guys that have been managers or players in the 80s and 90s, and now you're taking a guy who was, player in the late 90s and early 2000s. So Baldelli was supposed to be this big-time prospect, and I don't think he ever really planned out that much. So I guess they're hoping with some of their youth players that they'll be able to have a little bit more success. And Cash down in Tampa is the next youngest manager behind Baldelli. He's just 40 years old, so I guess they maybe saw something positive there. And the Rays were pretty good this year for a team that really didn't have a whole lot of – they got rid of a lot of their big-name talent. They still had Chris Archer and a couple other guys, but they had moved on to another group of players, and it's worked out okay for them. Clearly the Twins have talent, if they were able to do what they did last year, but being able to carry that over, I guess, is another story there. So we've got NFL tonight, Dolphins and Who is it? Dolphins and who? I don't remember. No, I don't want to go to the NHL scoreboard. NFL. Texans. Couldn't think of it. Texans getting 7.5 tonight. Going for their 5th straight win is Houston. How about that? Pretty impressive turnaround for that group. Got another London game this weekend, Eagles and Jaguars. A couple 3 and 4 teams. We'll spend some more time on what we got this weekend for NFL games. Got some good ones. Saints-Vikings is going to be interesting. I'm curious to see what happens with the Packers and the Rams. That should be solid. Ravens-Panthers is going to be a good one. Seahawks-Lions. You got a lot of teams that are right at 500 that are playing each other this week that could maybe be a little bit of a turning point for each side. Like the Bucs are 3-3 and the Bengals are 4-3. The Seahawks and Lions are both 3-3. Jets and Bears 3-4 and 3-3 respectively. Ravens are 4-3. Panthers are 4-2. The Browns-Steelers game is a pretty big one for both sides. You got to feel like. And there's some bad games, like Colts-Raiders is not one that I think a lot of people are going to be. Other than the fact that the Raiders are just kind of curious to watch because it has been such a disaster for John Gruden this year. I'm not going to sit here and be the guy, like, I told you so. I was questioning Gruden coming back because I felt like him getting the money that he was getting, and for a guy that had been outside coaching the game for as long as he had, and I heard from a couple different Raiders fans telling me that, he was in the Monday Night Football crew and he was around the game a lot. It's not the same to be out of the game for a decade. I don't know if that's what's going on there in Oakland. Now, this may have been something that was already headed this direction, and maybe the coaching change helped it. Maybe the trade of Khalil Mack helped it. Derek Carr's regression and, trading Amari Cooper, and it just – did Gruden see at the beginning of the season, we're really far away, and just because we can go out there and sign Khalil Mack doesn't mean that's going to make us a good football team? And maybe that's what it is. And at the end of the day, it might end up working okay for them. They're going to have a few first-round draft picks, and they can try and turn it around in another way. But, I mean, it's been, I think, about as bad as you could imagine for the Raiders. And I think what's been even worse about it is when they talk to Gruden afterwards, the things that they've, more than anything, it seems like he always talks about them needing a pass rush, and you traded your best pass rusher away, and it feels like, are you trolling us? I mean, are you seriously saying this to us out loud? I mean, kind of a hard thing to believe. So it may have been that Gruden came in and looked at the situation and felt like we're in a bad spot. And it doesn't matter if we give Khalil Mack a big contract. It doesn't matter if we keep Amari Cooper or even Derek Carr. We need to fix this, and it's not going to be this season. Now, he's not going to say that to the press, but maybe that's the discussions going on inside the Raiders. I guess I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. I could just call it a dumpster fire and move on, I guess. But I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and see the way it goes. But I was skeptical going in. I honestly feel like Gruden is a very good coach, but there's like an aura around him that I don't think is necessarily deserved. I guess that's all I would really say about that is there's some parallels to him and John Madden. And I think it would have been interesting if Madden, after he had gone into the broadcasting booth, because he was still a relatively young guy, and had come back out and coached a team in the late 80s or the early 90s, because that's what it would have been equivalent to in a lot of ways. And I don't believe he would have been successful. You haven't seen guys take as much time off as Gruden in pretty much any coaching and come back and be as good as they were. We saw Phil Jackson stop with the Bulls, but I think it was like 3 years before he went to the Lakers? It wasn't a decade. Dick Vermeil is probably the one that stands out in that he stopped coaching in the early 80s because of burnout, and then came back about, 10, 15 years later, and eventually led the Rams to the Super Bowl. He's probably the exception to the rule. And you see it with a lot of coaches, especially in the NFL. There are not coaches that usually have championships with two different teams. You look throughout the history of the NFL, and it's not there. Jimmy Johnson had his great run with the Cowboys. Couldn't replicate it in Miami. You gotta think about who else would, try to... Bill Cowher's been smart enough to not come back. He's stayed away. He's made a lot of money doing the broadcasting deal. I know there's a lot of people that probably tried to lure him out of that and come back to coaching. So, I'll give credit for Gruden for making the effort, because there was really no he was going to get paid by ESPN, and he could have been the voice of Monday Night Football for as long as he wanted to, and he decided to take this challenge. So I give him credit for that. And also for the Raiders, I don't necessarily have a problem with them trying it, but for everybody thinking that this was going to be a slam dunk and this was a great move by the Raiders, I just wasn't there. But, they saw an opportunity. I don't blame them. And maybe at the end of the day, this will work out well for them. I think it's probably too early to tell, but this season has just been ugly. Very bad. And I don't know how much you want to believe the infighting and people getting upset with Derek Carr because he was, I guess, crying after an injury. Who knows? You usually got somebody who is willing to be a source for someone and tell them stories, and how much of that is actually true. Those unnamed sources are always lots of fun. Not knowing who's actually telling the truth and all of that, but there's definitely some issues. That would be fair. Clearly we've got that with the Jaguars right now. And there being some issues there. And a lot of that may have to do with Blake Bortles. I don't know. But for a team that's, we were 3 games into the season, everybody's like, oh my goodness, the Jaguars. Everybody was so excited. And that fell apart within a season, within, a month span. That has gone so badly for the Jags. That one's sort of impressive too. I want to believe in Blake Bortles. I want to believe that guy can eventually be a good NFL quarterback, but gosh, there sure is a lot of evidence pointing to the bad side so far in his career. And it's hard to find a quarterback. It's hard to find somebody that is that good. And not having Leonard Fournette has hurt them, but I think the tough thing with the Jaguars is it feels like they should be so much better because of how good their defense is, and maybe that's not fair. Who knows? But yeah, there's some fun stories I feel like in the NFL. I think the Eagles are interesting, coming off the championship and not playing that well. And you could probably go along every division and find some really intriguing stuff this year. It's been an interesting. They talk about the TV ratings being up in the NFL this year. I think it's because it's been an interesting season. And I feel like we've heard less about some of the controversial stuff. And, some of the storylines have been interesting. Here's something else. We haven't had as much of the talk about the rough and the passer penalties the last couple of weeks. We haven't had any so bad that people are losing their minds. The helmet hits have not been a major issue this year. Or at least the flags on them, what we thought was going to be in the regular season. So there have been some things that would look like doom and gloom things heading into the season that haven't been as bad. And we've had good matchups in prime time, and I think that's probably part of the reason why you're seeing the ratings up for the NFL a little bit this year. But yeah, people had that storyline for the NFL why the ratings were going down, and maybe it's still true, but I always kind of felt like there's differing reasons why the ratings had been getting worse for the NFL. But why not just pick something that fits your agenda, right? Hey, you guys have a great rest of your day. Roundup tomorrow at 2 p.m.
Hey, this is Stu Gotch. You're listening to ESPN Alamo Gordo, 103.7 Southern New Mexico sports leader, KNMZ Alamo Gordo.
Sports Center. I'm Doug Brown. Game 3 of the World Series is tomorrow at Dodger Stadium. The Red Sox lead.